All right, welcome back, my frog army. We are here with some more scary stories to tell in the dark. So, I want to say first, I'm sorry that I have not been able to upload. I was waiting for the green screen to come in, but unfortunately, because of the crazy weather, we have not been able to get any packages. So, I'm going to do today a double feature. So, I'm going to not only do one story, but I'm going to be doing two. The first story is the White Satin Evening Gown, and the second story will be called High Beams. So, let's go ahead and read that first story. The White Satin Evening Dress. I hope I'm saying that right. A young woman. Oh, whoops, my bad. A young man. A young man invited a young woman to a formal dance, but she was very poor, and she could not afford to buy an evening gown she needed for such an occasion. Maybe you can rent a dress, her mother said. So she went to a pawn shop not far from where she lived. There she found a white satin evening gown in her size. She looked lovely in it, and she was able to rent it for very little. That's good. When she arrived at the dance with her friends, she was so attractive that everyone wanted to meet her. She danced again and again and was having a wonderful time. But then she began to feel dizzy and faint, and she asked her friend to take her home. I think I have danced too much, she told him. When she got home, she laid down on the bed. The next morning, her mother found that her daughter had died. The doctor did not understand what had caused her death, so he had a coroner perform an autopsy. The coroner found that she had been poisoned by she'd been poisoned by embalming fluid that had stopped her blood from flowing. There were traces of the fluid on her dress. He decided it had entered her skin when she prospered while hold on entered her skin when she perspired while she was dancing. I don't understand that word. I'm sorry, guys. Um, the pawnbroker said that he bought the dress from an undertaker helper. It had been used in a funeral for another young woman, and the helper had stolen it just before she was buried. That's sick. I'm just gonna say that for that story. That's sick. Sorry I couldn't get some of those words, guys. Anyway, the next story is called High Beams. The girl driving the old blue sedan was a senior at high school. Yeah, senior at high school. She lived on a farm about 8 miles away and used the car to drive back and forth. She had driven into town that night to see a basketball game. Now she was on her way home. As she pulled away from the high school, she noticed a red pickup truck following her out of the parking lot. A few minutes later, the truck was still behind her. I guess we're going the same direction, she thought. She began to watch the truck in the mirror. When she changed her speed, the driver of the truck changed his speed. When she passed a car, so did he. Then he turned on the high beams, flooding her car with light. He left them on for almost a minute. He probably wants to piss me off. Oh, oh, I mean, probably wants to pass me. I'm sorry, guys. She thought, but she was becoming uneasy. Usually, She drove home over a back road. Not too many people went that way, but when she turned into the road, so did the truck. I've got to get away from him, she thought, and she began to drive faster. Then he turned his high beams on again. After a minute, he turned them off. Then he turned them on again and then turned them off again. She drove even faster, but the truck driver stayed right behind her. Then he turned his high beams on again. Once more, her car was ablaze with light. What is he doing? She wondered. What does he want? Then he turned them off again. But a minute later, he had turned them on again, and he left them on. At, at last, she pulled into her driveway, and the truck pulled in right behind her. She jumped from the car and ran to the house, called the police. She screamed at her father. Screamed at her father. Out in the driveway, she could see the driver of the truck. He had a gun in his hand. When the police arrived, they they started to arrest him, but he pointed to the girl's car. "You don't want me," he said. "You want him." Crouched behind the driver's seat, there was a man with a knife. As the driver of the truck explained it, the man slipped into the girl's car just before she left school. He saw it happen, but there was no way he could stop it. He thought about getting the police, but he was afraid to leave her. So he followed her. So he followed her car. Each time the man in the back seat reached up to overpower reached up to overpower her, the driver of the truck turned his high beams on. Then the man dropped down, afraid that someone might see him. Wow. Well, that has been Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. High beams along with the satin dress, or the evening gown. If you like these stories, give me a thumbs up. If you want more of these stories, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when any other videos come up. Sorry I messed up a little bit in this one. A few words I messed up on, but we corrected ourselves throughout. I appreciate all of you guys who are watching, who got this far. You guys are awesome. And, if it wasn't for all of you, this channel, it would just be kind of bleh. But it's going good. So don't worry. The next story, we're not going to do it right now, but the next story will be called The Babysitter. So that should be interesting. So even if I don't get my green screen tomorrow, I'm going to start doing some double features. So there'll be two stories at a time because I've missed like all week and I feel kind of bad about it. So we're going to do that for about 5 days. We're going to do these two stories and then we're going to move back to just the one story. So anyway, this is Kombat-Frog. I am your host, signing off.